Neuron basics. Here we are. Like I said, we're going to go over these again. We've talked about this a little bit before. We're going to talk about the 4 key areas of a neuron, plus the anatomy and physiology, and go from there. Fats is missing. No, he is. He is. For a bit. Savvy Ray, for a bit. I'm sure we'll get a spicy sub sometime soon. And then you guys can see Fats in all his glory. Or it'll be, we'll have to wait for treat time, you know? Any one of those things will do it. How the heck you doing, Sabby? What's good? What's new? How are you? Please tell me all about it. Hope you're doing well. He's not in his chair? He's okay? Oh, he's good. He's good. He's just around doing his thing. I saw you got you made moderator status in Brian's channel. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's really cool for you. Doing well? I'm doing well too. Doing well, Sabby. Doing freaking well. Thanks for asking. We're just here talking about neuroscience, so I'm doing well. Thanks for that welcome, Ninja. There it is. Yeah, but what's new, Savvy? Anything? What's a skill that you've always wanted to learn? That's our question of the evening this evening. Anybody in chat who wants to say that or answer that question, what's a skill you've always wanted to learn? Feel honored to be a Brian J's mod? Of course you do. Of course, that's awesome. Oh, that's over. Mrs. Beta just delivered him into the room. He's ready. Mrs. Beta also startled me because I didn't know she was here. Holy crap! Whoa, a bird nerd raid. Whoa, wow, 54 freaking people. Coming on over with Damien Explorers. Welcome in, Damien. Good to see you. Another fellow member of the Knowledge Fellowship. We can get a shout out for Damien Explorers. That'd be great. Appreciate that. Damien Explorers, thanks for bringing your friends over. Appreciate you. Heck, a Centipede and Pine the Man. Long time no see. Good to see you guys again. Welcome on in. Nightworks, Sea Death, Ion Upheaval, Snubcat, Lady Ghost Hawk. Thanks for coming on over with Damien Explorers. And Damien, thanks for visiting our community. Thanks for bringing your friends over. My name's Ina Beta. We talk all about different neuroscience and scientific topics here on the channel. Thanks for connecting with us. Appreciate you. Tonight we're talking about them neuron basics. We're going over it again. Last night we talked about the International Phonetic Alphabet. I used my expertise as a speech therapist to talk about that. And on Tuesday we talked about the amygdala. Thanks for connecting with us. Appreciate it. I go over this kind of stuff 3 nights a week with people, with our community. On Friday we just focus on variety gaming. Just relax with some games. Chill Friday night. So yeah, usually the first part or first half or so of the stream is Nero, second half is games. That sounds like your jam. Feel free to come on by sometime. Love to see you here. Heck, a Centipede, it has been a minute, indeed. It's good to see you. I Paint Creatures, welcome on in. Good to see you. Uncle Bill Druin, what's up, man? So rolling the raid, some of you guys started in the Candria stream. It's good to see everybody regardless. Good to see you guys. Welcome on in. Good to see you guys. We are just about to get started talking about some neuron basics. Thanks for that. Thanks for connecting with us. Appreciate that. I was also talking about how I got me some of this little 23andMe package. I'm gonna do this and then maybe go over it on stream. I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing you should do or can do or what. I don't know. But I'm thinking about it. Melko, what's up? Good to see you, man. Thanks for those connections, guys. Appreciate that. Cook577, good to see you. You're a big fan of dendrites? Well, we're going to talk about them. Integer division. What's up? You made it just in time for the raid? I mean, you're in the raid. You're here. You're on it. Tomo101, good to see you. Welcome on in. Some of you guys probably got caught up by some ads. I wish you didn't, but here we are. Welcome on in, everybody. Good to see you guys. I love that bird emote. That's good. A love emote. I gotta get myself one of them love emotes when I get the partner status one day. Absolutely. Thanks for that connection as well. Yeah, tonight we're going over the neuron basics. Like I said, also celebrating my first stream on being as a member of 2 different stream teams. I've been a member of the Yam fam for a while now, and last night I just got invited to join the Illustrious Lounge stream team as well. Full of people I've been looking up to as streamers since I began my streaming journey, so super stoked about that. It's awesome. Yeah, thank you for coming over and joining us. Let's jump into this. Let's jump into it. Science indeed, Integer Ninja, or Integer Division. Sorry, not Ninja. Science indeed, absolutely. I'm getting over a chest cold, so I might stop and cough every once in a while. Sorry about that, guys. Super stoked about that. Possum or potassium? Thanks, Melko. Appreciate that. It just says, now we're going to get that a lounge judgment pack emote. What? What is that? I have no idea what that is. Anyways, let's do this. Neuron freaking basics. Neuron basics. Do the thing. Oh no, my PowerPoint died. Gosh dang it. Sorry, 1 second. Let me re-download it or just reopen it. Sorry about that, guys. That happens sometimes. I don't have a legit copy of... Well, it's difficult sometimes. I don't need to go into why. It just is. Okay, here we are. Snubcat! How you doing? Welcome on in. This is my boop. Don't worry about it. That's just me. Don't worry about it. Alright, here we go. Here we go. Pime the man's here. Ugh, I know, right? Jeez. So yeah, for those of you guys who are stuck behind commercials, on your way in here with the raid from Damien Explores. My name is Ina Beta. We talk about different neuroscience and psychology and scientific topics here on stream. And then we also enjoy variety gaming. So 3 nights a week we talk about neuroscience, and the other night we focus on just gaming. Tonight we're talking about Neuron basics. Last night we talked about the International Phonetic Alphabet. I talked about that with my knowledge of being a speech therapist. And Tuesday we talked all about the amygdala. So, if that sounds like your jam, feel free to continue connecting with us. We'd love to see new faces around here. Here we go. And it said, Sim, Fruit Bats, KZ, Fru, and Billy all have judgment emotes. Oh, I didn't know that. I had no idea. I did not know this. Okay. Didn't know it. What's my background in science? I paint creatures. I learned some in college. That's about it. And I also had some background in neuroscience from being a speech therapist. There was a heavy neuroscience emphasis to it in talking all about adult speech therapy, hospital setting speech therapy. So that's my background. I wish I had more of a science background, like I actually worked in it, but I just don't have that kind of thing. So, oh, you want that one? Ugh, gross. God, oh, I don't know about that one, Ninja. It's a creepy emo, dude. You love some neuroscience sugar weather? Well, so do I. So do I. I don't have a ton of work experience in it or an advanced degree in it or anything like that, but my passion is unmatched. I teach it to myself, using as many sources as I can, and go from there. Thanks, I paint creatures. I appreciate that. I'm always wary to talk about that kind of thing because I feel like people are gonna be like, ugh, fake neuroscientist, and walk away, but I've never had that happen. So, because I mean, on here you don't have to have that. Thankfully, I ain't trying to show up in front of a class or anything like that. So, anyways, is there a quest happening right now? No, there's not. Yes, there is. There's a quest happening right now. Anybody in chat may enter !quest and get this little fat guy a treat. If you'd like to join, go for it. If not, that's okay too. No worries. Fake sigh, lol, got him. Ion up people. Oh, joined there as well, but a little late. That's okay though. The quest was successful, so no worries. Everybody gets to enjoy the fruits of the adventurer's labor, which means little fat boy gets treat. You all get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. Those of you guys who don't know him, this is little fat boy, or Fats. He's my fat little lab assistant here on the stream. He usually hangs out here on his little chair for the entire night, but in the beginning he likes to just take off right after his treat, so that's what he do. And we meet this little sub-incentive right over my head. We get to have kitty cam all stream. But if not, that's okay. We'll still get to see him during treat quests and all that stuff, so no worries. Retirement goals? Indeed. Bats is so cute. I know, isn't he? He's like the cutest little kitty on Twitch. I'm just gonna put that out there. Your kid has had some catnip and is tripping out right now. Fast doesn't react to catnip. I wish he did. Danny Taz following for the cat. Cool. Going back to see him sometime. He's almost 13 years old. He'll be 13 in March. Ooh. All right, let's do this. So many TKF people knowing each other in here. That's awesome. And, Damien, what kind of birds you guys see today? Anything? I didn't even ask. I didn't even think to ask that yet. But what'd you guys see out there? If he's still here. May or may not be. That's okay. So we're going to go through Neuron basics while I'm waiting for that answer. The way I do these kind of, they're not lectures, but these discussions is they're open to for anybody to comment, ask questions, and all that stuff on. So please feel free to. The whole goal of this is for you to understand this stuff better. So feel free to chime in with your own experience, talk about it, ask questions, any of those things, make comments. Please do. And then every once in a while, as I go through these, I'll stop and I'll talk to chat for a bit. Make sure to keep up with you guys, because I mean, part of the reason why you're watching this here and not elsewhere is that you want to, interact with me. So, Simcopter, one of the leaders of the illustrious lounge team that I am now a proud member of. Thanks for that, host, my friend. Good to see you, man. Welcome on in, Sim. If you guys don't know Sim yet, he's also a variety broadcaster, a late night broadcaster. Go check him out if you guys want to see strategy and simulation games played with the utmost experience and be part of a wonderful, positive community that focuses on inclusivity, increasing knowledge, and talking all about not geology, dang it, the other one, geography, and different cultures and all that stuff. Feel free to go check him out. Damien said they found a peregrine falcon. All right, bald eagles, cormorants, bunch of stuff. Wow. It's awesome. Good stuff, man. You guys must have been pretty far out in the wilderness or something, I would guess. Right now, yeah, Sim's playing some Doki Doki Literature Club. If you don't know that game, it's an interesting one. My game of the year last year, absolutely. Freaking loved it. And he plays it well. Well, I don't know if they finished it or not last night. I would assume they did. But anyways. As I was saying, feel free to stop, ask any questions, talk to me all about this. It doesn't have to just be me lecturing it, but if it is, that's okay. I mean, if you just want to sit back and listen, that's just fine too. No worries. But feel free to ask any questions you have. Always, not even just here, but in life. Always ask those questions, get the information you need. Me too, Sim, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, I'll stop throughout and talk with chat a little bit as well. So, and then after this, we're playing some Darkest Dungeon. So, hope you stick around and hope you learn something. That's the whole point of this. You had a good cry last night. I know it's kind of a tearjerker sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. Absolutely is. E Frosty, what's up? Good to see you, man. It's been a pleasure getting to know you on Twitter and such, man. Good to see you. Danny Taz, ready for some science? Let's freaking do it. Let's do it. Let's get in there. So first, the four basic, subdivisions, I guess, four basic areas I kind of break it down, kind of break a neuron down into, is the dendrites, these branching parts up here, dendrites here, the soma, or the cell body, right here, this little thick boy in the center, that's the soma, or the cell body, which all cells have. Absolutely, Frosty, no problem, man. That's what I'm here for. I'm glad that you're opening up about that on Twitter, and I hope you got a lot of other positive comments as well. Hope you did. We have the axon, with which, if you were around for our talk all about action potentials, we talked about the axon a lot because that's kind of the fiber, or the cable, if you will, the biological cable that the action potential travels down on its way out to the synapses that it's going to interact with. The axon would be coming out of the other end of this soma. And sometimes axons have some branches to them, but they're not common, and if they do have them, there are very few branches to an axon, as compared to all these dendrites up in here. Look at all the branches on the dendrites, look at the little dendritic spines, like way more branching and connections and stuff up here in dendrites than there will be in axons. Usually axons are pretty straightforward, to the point, you know? And then, at the end of each axons, I don't think they're at the end of each axon, they're not shown here. Hey, thanks for checking us out. Thanks for following us. Appreciate that. At the end of each axon, they're not shown here, but there are what are called axon terminals. You'd actually just saw those in the follow alert right there. Those little bits right there. Or that was one of those would be an axon terminal, and the other one would be a dendritic spine. And there's neurotransmitter transfer in between those. We're going to talk about that more in depth, right? This is the basic 4 areas that we're going to go over, right? Dendrites, soma, axon, and then at the end of the axons, we have the axon terminal. So here's a really up close picture of a dendrite, a section of a dendrite, right? And this length is I don't know what that is, a picometer, micrometer, I'm not sure, but these obviously are very, very tiny. And on here, we also see, this would be called a dendritic spine. Here's the dendritic spine neck and the spine head. This is what's going to kind of reach out from a dendrite and connect to an axon terminal. Micro, thank you, integer, thank you. Micro, it's at 1 micrometer. Frosty said, oh no, this is bad. I'm actually really interested in hearing this. I'm going to get stuck here. That's not bad at all. Stick around. You can learn with us, man. That's great. Learn with us. Never leave. It's fine. It's good stuff. Totally down. Good. I feel like everybody should know at least like a little bit more about this. Just helps us to understand how we work, and I think it makes it so that you can relate to other people better and better understand other people's viewpoints and beliefs and all that, and react to those in more positive ways, in my opinion. So that's what I think anyways. That's my whole basis on this. Anyways, dendrites branch off from the cell body, like we said, the soma. They branch up. So I didn't talk about this, but this right here is one type of neuron. There are over 100, at least that I know of, different types of neurons in the brain. This is a specific kind that you usually find in the cortex. The part that, like, if you look at a brain, you're seeing the cortex, that outer, that outer wrinkly part, that's the cortex. The neurons on the outside of that, the very outside, that's these kinds of neurons that are called pyramidal neurons. They're named that way because the dendrites often form a sort of a pyramid shape like this, sort of. It's a loose term, but they're termed pyramidal neurons. That's what this one is, right? Not all neurons look like this. Some neurons have very little dendrites. Some neurons have a very short axon. Some only have some don't have axons, and they actually just have 2 bunches of dendrites instead, and they perform the jobs of dendrites and axons. There's varying different types, right? For the most part, when you see and we talk about neurons that we're talking about, usually like the quintessential model of one is like this, the pyramidal neuron. So all right, so those dendrites branch off of the cell body like we saw in the last picture, and they contain the receptor sites, right? These little bits at the end of the spine head, those are receptor sites, or well, these have receptor sites on them. Receptor sites are what interact with the neurotransmitters that are released in synapses, and they form kind of a lock and key combination to set off different reactions within the postsynaptic neuron. Usually usually going towards resulting in an action potential. That's kind of the end goal of neuronal firing and neurotransmitter release, at least in the central nervous system. So yeah, they can receive incoming signals from presynaptic neurons. They can receive hundreds or thousands of signals from other neurons, because those dendrites that branch off, they can be connected to just, hundreds or even thousands of other neurons. A lot of them, for sure. Some of them are only connected to one, though. The ganglia neuron, yep, it's right there. The ganglia neurons in that synapse with cone cells in our retina, we talked about during our visual system chat. Those are a one-to-one connection, right? So the ganglia cells only connect to that one cone, and that's it. That's all they do. But that's not most neurons. Most neurons connect to way more than one neuron, for sure. Ooh. And again, stimulating those receptor sites that are on dendrites increase the likelihood that action potentials will occur in the postsynaptic neuron. And that is all that was all covered back in the action potentials lecture. I'm not going to go into these different processes and stuff like that very in depth today is just kind of the basics of like the basic parts of a neuron. And if you missed those other talks, we're going to go over them again. Thursday's a day where we kind of review stuff that we've already talked about. So just to make sure everybody gets it. I think this kind of stuff bears repeating. So on the dendrites, we talked about there's those dendritic spines. There's a couple of different kinds. There's ones that barely stick off of the dendrite called stubby ones. Well, there's ones called mushrooms. There's thin ones, and yeah. So those are the, I guess, the three types. There could be more, maybe less. I don't know. You start driving home, Damien? Yeah, you guys you're clearly out in the wilderness, so yeah, take it easy. Drive safe, and thanks for bringing your friends by. Appreciate it. Yeah, dendrite spines. These are where the receptor sites are located, like we said. And you can think of dendritic spines as kind of the functional unit of a dendrite. Basically, that's the little part of a dendrite where the work's getting done. That's kind of why that's what makes a dendrite do what it does, which is, interact with the presynaptic neuron, or the neuron that's going to release those neurotransmitters by catching those in the receptor sites and either becoming more excitatory or more inhibitory. Depends on receptor site, depends on neurotransmitter, depends on a lot of different things, for sure. Oh, cool. Stop. Yeah, like I said, 3 different types of dendritic spines based on layout of axons and dendrites being connected, for sure. Thin, mushroom, and stubby, right? So, these aren't static either. Those dendritic spines, those are kind of formed as needed, on a kind of a need to exist basis, in a process that's known as long-term potentiation. We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday. We were talking about the amygdala. That's kind of how it helps us to learn different associations with fearful and other emotional stimuli. That's basically like the biological process of learning is long-term potentiation, right? The strengthening or breakdown, well, I guess long-term potentiation is specifically the strengthening, the making of new connections between 2 neurons, or the strengthening of an already pre-existing connection. That's long-term potentiation in a very, very wide nutshell. I'm not ready to go into the biological processes of that just yet. I would like to in a future talk. But yeah, forming new synapses with growing new dendritic spines and connecting and synapsing with other axons, that's long-term potentiation. And that is basically the biological process or physiological process of what we would call learning, what we experience as learning, gathering new information, remembering that information in the future, making connections with what we already know. That's this process. That's the result of this process. That's our perception of this process. Right? And there's this kind of a pictorial representation of long-term potentiation between the red axon here and the yellow dendrite. There's a new dendritic spine that grows out, connects with that axon, and kind of thickens that synapse as well, as there's a stronger and stronger association made. Also, they're showing the opposite of long-term potentiation, which we talked about on Tuesday. Is called long-term depression. No, not clinical depression, where you are unmotivated and have a chemical imbalance in the brain, not that, but where dendritic spines stop receiving so much stimulation from the presynaptic neuron that they were connected to, and they begin to retract that dendritic spine and use the process, or use the resources for that elsewhere instead. Right? And that would be what we perceive as forgetting. If you don't use information, you end up losing it. Pims, what's up? You saw that I'm part of the lounge now? Oh yeah, I'm glad you saw that. Congrats indeed. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. It's been something I've been aspiring to for a long time, and I was lucky enough to have it happen. So thanks so much for stopping by, Pims, and thank you for the congrats, and hope you learn while you're here. We're talking all about neuroscience basics. What's up, Kyle? You're very happy for me? I'm happy for me too, Pims. Thank you. I'm happy that you're here. Thank you for that, Pims. I appreciate it. And Kyle, what's he doing? What's up, my friend? How the heck are you? Also, we have a question of the evening. We just recently reinstated. But what's a skill that you guys have always wanted to learn? While you guys are thinking, if you guys want to keep the conversation going, what's something you've always wanted to learn, and why? Let's see. Uncle Bill said, "Lucky shot. Much chat misses you while you're multitasking. Someday a streamer will figure out you're easily Beetlejuiced with audio." I don't know what that means, man. That you can be called in or something like that. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, Integer put the more colloquial term that describes LTP in here. Neurons that fire together wire together, which means that, you know, as a neuron sends more neurotransmitters to a postsynaptic neuron, they build a stronger and stronger connection, and so on and so forth down whatever neural circuit it happens to be a part of, and that behavior becomes that much stronger, or that piece of information becomes that much more easily recollected and more connected to other things as well. Absolutely, Integer. Totally. Integer's always wanted to learn jazz. All right. Like on what sort of instrument? Because you can play jazz on all kinds of different stuff. Yeah, there's long-term potentiation being shown down here, the strengthening of those connections, and then, you know, weakening of those connections and eventual complete breaking of that connection altogether. Long-term depression, which, if you've ever learned something, you know, like you can learn something pretty quickly, but it takes a long time to forget that if you ever forget it, you know. So long-term depression takes a longer time to establish than long-term potentiation does. You want to learn it on guitar? All right, cool. I picked up the guitar once and tried to start learning some chords and stuff like that, and stuck with it for a couple of weeks and was like, it's not for me. I hope you get to that one day, man. Hope you get to that. What's stopping you right now? Just lack of time, or lack of, I don't know. I would assume lack of time, lack of money. What's stopping you? Melko wants to learn how to sing. Not even well, just in tune. Yeah, I would love that too. I think that would help with help to project my voice better too, because anybody that's talked to me in real life knows like I'm pretty hard to hear. Here it's easy because I can kind of control how I sound and I'm speaking into a microphone, but like in real life it can be hard to understand me. I just don't belt my voice out there enough. You'd think as a speech therapist I'd have that on lockdown, but I really don't. Noted like to say, I feel like there's so many skills to learn and very few you have. Well, what's one you want? Just practice, Integer. Okay, got it. Well, sounds like you'll get there eventually. Just gotta find more reason. Uncle Bill said, yeah, just call you 3 times and wait. If I don't hear it myself, maybe one of my spies will call me. All right, I'll have to do that. The beginning of each stream, calling up old Uncle Bill, coming over. So glad you guys are here this evening. And by the way, also, those of you guys in the back who are listening and maybe not participating in chat, that is okay. Don't worry about that. We love having you here. Y'all make Twitch go around. Glad to have you. I'm just glad you're here learning with us. So, always welcome. Let's see. Yep, talked about all these things. Yeah. And like I said, this process is our perception, what we perceive as learning and forgetting. That's it. That's the biological and physiological process of that. What we experience is learning. Boop. The soma. No, not the video game. not that soma. The cell body of a neuron, right? Part that contains the nucleus, part that contains a lot of the mitochondria, all them ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, all those things you learned like in high school and like biology, and then forgot all about those things. Yeah, it's got all that stuff in there. Zoiku, welcome on in. Good to see you. How the heck are you? Nodelecta said, I'd really like to know a lot more craft-based skills, like woodworking skills. Yes, I know it's a series of different skills, totally. Metalworking skills, stuff like that. Those are all a series of different skills, but yeah, that'd be cool if you picked one of those up. There's, I would guess, not only a time barrier to that, but also a space and money barrier as well. You gotta have space for a workshop. You have to have materials and tools and all that. It can be tough to break into. One of your top one is oddly flint napping. Okay, like know how to flint nap. I actually don't know what that is. Is it where you kind of like? No, I have no idea. What is that? Tell me more about that. I want to hear it. Integer says also, if you can tell that you're not in, or if you can tell you're not in tune when you sing, that's half the battle. Yes, the rest is deliberate practice. Yep, just training your ear, getting yourself in tune. I can usually at least tell that I'm not in tune. And then I stop. I don't try to fix it, I just stop singing. So like I said, flint napping's fun. You can use discarded bottles. Okay. That's where you kind of just like break off successive pieces and then make an edge on a piece of rock, or like a rock or a piece of glass or something like that, right? Is that it? Yeah, got it. Noted like that. Yes, I've seen that done in like a survival show once. They actually found a glass bottle, which I don't know how legit that it was that they found this glass bottle, but they found a glass bottle and then did flint napping to like make a little arrowhead out of it, and then ended up killing a wild turkey. Pretty crazy. Yeah, I got you, Nodaletta. Gotcha. And they would do that with flint, I guess. Melko's on that quest. Who else is going? So yeah, nail, eye protection, and thick cloth. Cool. There you go. Yeah, I think out there they were just using some rocks because that's all they had. Exclamation point quest for anybody that wants to in chat to join a quest to get this little fat guy a treat. He's waiting so patiently. They're coming, Melko. They're coming. Yeah, at least two. You got 2 members of the neural net in there. You're good. You're good. So yeah, the soma, as we were talking about, guys, the soma is the cell body. It's where the nucleus is stored. Basically, it's where DNA transcription is going to happen, protein and other enzyme synthesis and all that stuff. All the different biological molecules and stuff that the cell, in this case the neuron, needs to survive and do its job. That's going to be synthesized here in the nucleus, or in the soma. For the most part, there are some bits, some things, some certain smaller neurotransmitters that aren't made here in the soma. They're actually made all the way down at the other end of the axon at the terminal buttons, or the axon terminals, where they will be fired out into synapses instead. They're actually assembled there on site. But larger ones, things like oxytocin, vasopressin, things like that, they're assembled here outside the soma and then shipped down the axon along these microtubules. There's kind of like little highways that go down the axon and allow them to get there. You know? And that's that. I see you guys took out... Who'd you take out? Somebody. It didn't say who you took out, but you took out somebody. That's weird. What the heck, Bada? You took out somebody. And, yeah. Fatboy gets treat. You guys get some kitty game. Thank you guys for donating again to Fatboy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest little kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. Rip, dude. Probably the occultist's fault. Probably. If they were using an occultist, yep. Got screwed over. Fats, oh my god. You're just like lusciously soft tonight. I don't know what you did today, but you were like extra soft, buddy. You're getting used as a pillow later. I hope you know that. He doesn't know that, but he'll get over it. Nodalecta said you also need a relatively well-ventilated area to do it in, especially if you're doing it with like flint, obsidian, or other stuff like that, because it'd be dangerous to breathe in the flakes that you're breaking off. I didn't know that. Sounds like you just need like a bandana around your face or something. Integer said, have I read, or at least heard of, Anders Ericsson's Peak? No, I haven't. What is that? I haven't. I'm reading through right now Behave by Robert Sapolsky. It's really good. I love it. It's like a behavioral neuroscientific look at human behavior and how it's affected by so many different things, going all the way back to like, you know, culture thousands and thousands of years ago, up to, you know, what we're about to do right now, whether it be an act of violence or something else. So, really interesting. Anyways, soma, let's see. That's where they synthesize everything, DNA transcription happens, all that stuff. Also where they make most of the cells ATP. We haven't talked about ATP too much, but those of you who have been over in Dr. WD-40's channel, you know, ATP is his channel currency. And what it is the the primary unit that a cell, that your body or cells in your body use to move energy around and catalyze reactions or start reactions. So this is what's made when they say the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's making ATP. That's what Krebs cycle does. That's what electron transport helps do. It makes ATP. So to be packaged, that's packaged up, easily broken down energy that they can move around to different parts of the cell and do all the things they need to do with it. So there's also inside the soma, not all the transcription of DNA and stuff like that is done right here, but also there's things called Nissl bodies, which are kind of like little localized factories for proteins within the soma. Because you know, there's just so many different things that need to be made. They have these special little pockets of protein synthesis factories all around them. So most cells don't have those kind of things, but neurons do, because they're constantly making neurotransmitters that are released from the cell, and some are reuptaken, some are not, but they just constantly have to be replacing those. So one of the reasons why the brain takes so much energy, you know, things like this, so they're just constantly making these neurotransmitters to signal with. So we didn't talk about, I didn't talk about this earlier, but let me go back actually. So the when a postsynaptic neuron, the dendritic spine on a postsynaptic neuron is, that's what I'm looking for, stimulated, there we go, by a presynaptic neuron, by neurotransmitter release. And they connect into the receptor sites on the postsynaptic neuron or on those dendritic spikes. Ion channels open up nearby, and that allows some of the ions in the the extracellular matrix into the cell. And we talked about this we talked all about this on the action potential section that we went over a couple of weeks ago. I'm not going to go into it heavily now, but all those different ions that they are allowing in from the outside of the cell, the extracellular matrix, those make their way down the dendrites through the soma and gather here. It's not labeled, but here at the edge of what is the soma and the beginning of the axon, a little area called the axon hillock, right? All those negatively charged ions start to come in and gather right there. And when there's enough of those, as we talked about, that kicks off an action potential, which kind of sends that cascading ion flow down the axon. And that is what is referred to as an action potential. Often we visualize it with like electricity flowing down a neuron. It's really not that. It's just ion flow. It's not so much there's electrical charges like going off in your brain like as we would think of them, but there is an electrical potential moving through your brain, so you can actually measure it that way and all that. But that's where that process begins, right here at the axon hillock between the soma and the beginning of the axon. And there's a specialized the cell membrane here in the axon hillock is a little bit different than the rest of the cell membrane around the soma. There's a much higher density of ion channels here in the axon hillock to allow that big inrush of ions as they start to cascade down the axon. So I'm saying there is some potential in your brain. Exactly. You got this. Let me catch up here. Integer says, Sapolsky was just on Ezra Klein's podcast this morning about poverty and stress. Oh, awesome. That sounds like something he would talk about, for sure. Amazing. I would love to have heard that. Peak is all about learning using a technique called deliberate practice. It's a game changer. Wow. That sounds dope. I need to check this out. Add this to my list of everything else I want to do and read. Many streamers say like the gaming backlog is real. Like I feel like the learning backlog, the learning and like coming up with teaching sections backlog is real. Like there's just so much stuff I want to make and do. It's crazy. Ooh. Thank you for telling me about that. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I'd recommend Behave, and I would also recommend The Upward Spiral. That was really good too, by Korb, I think his name is. But yeah, that was a really good one too, all about the neuroscience of depression and whatnot. All right, that's basically the soma. Protein synthesis is the name of the game. Not necessarily protein, but biological molecule synthesis is the name of the game here. Yeah, that's what happens. We're not going to go into the nitty-gritty of all the different biological processes that happen there. I probably never will do that just because that's not so much my jam, and I don't think it's as relevant as everything else. So, boop. Integer said, the more I learn, the less you realize you know. Exactly. Yeah, the paradox of learning. We talked about that. We talked about that before. The more you learn, the more questions you have. Absolutely. Oh yeah, we talked about these microtubules. I forgot I had a slide. I haven't been through this specific teaching section yet. But there's microtubules. I forgot I had a slide that shows some real ones taken with some imaging techniques and staining, which is the way we normally get these kind of pictures of neurons and such. But this is pictures of microtubules running through rat neuron, kind of running along the length of these axons and such all throughout them. But like I said, those larger neurotransmitters that are assembled in the soma, those need to be transported down the axon to the axon terminals for release, and those are transported via these microtubules. Right? And yeah, and they're shown here. And yeah, that just says what I already said, so we're good there. Now the axon. We talked about this a lot during the action potential section. We even used this same picture. But the axon is that typically one unbranching long process that branches away from the soma, and that's where an action potential will be sent down when one is generated. Whenever a neuron is stimulated enough to generate one of those action potentials. That's synonymous with firing. That's synonymous with sending a signal. That's synonymous with there's a bunch of different ways to say an action potential occurred. And we can see, talked about that. So this action potentials kind of propagate in a certain way called saltatory conduction, all the way down the axon. They kind of jump through these, it's maybe kind of hard to see there, but they jump through these sections of yellow, what is called myelin sheathing, right? Which this myelin sheathing acts kind of just like insulation on copper wire, makes it so that you're better able to conduct these action potentials as they travel down an axon. Just makes it so that they travel faster, they travel with more signal fidelity, all that good stuff. Not every axon, as we've learned here on the channel, is myelinated. Some axons are not myelinated, and that means that they still conduct action potentials, but it's a much slower process. We learned about that when we talked about pain. There are those. There's two different types of pain receptors. There's the first pain receptor that when you're hurt, it sends you that sharp shooting pain, and you recoil whatever body part got hurt or whatever and assess the damage. And then after that, there's that kind of slow burn, that second pain, and that's done with unmyelinated axons, and it's kind of a slow, more progressive and prolonged pain, and that signal travels slower in those due to the lack of myelin. So, and that conduction I was talking about, the action potential traveling down a axon, is called saltatory conduction. That word is kind of related to the Spanish word saltar, as in to jump, and basically what that is the action potential jumping between these sections of myelin sheathing all the way down the axon, which is what makes it that much faster. In between these sections of myelin sheathing, there are what are called nodes of Ranvier, where there is no myelin sheathing and there's more ion channels open to the extracellular matrix outside, which allows a fresh influx of those ions, and that's how that action potential keeps traveling down the axon. It's not so much that there's a charge that it shoots down itself, it's more that some of the ions that were at the axon hillock travel down to that first node of Ranvier, which causes ion channels to open there. A fresh influx of ions comes in, travels passively diffuses down to the next node of Ranvier, channels open, so or ions influx, and so on and so forth till you get to the end of the axon, which we'll see in a second. I thought that was the next slide. I haven't gone through this lecture, or through this teaching portion yet, as I said. So I want to talk a little bit more about myelin sheathing. This is a cross section of a axon. Yeah, you can see this myelin sheathing has kind of been like wrapped around in layers around the axon, and that's what makes those ions travel down the axon much faster, as we talked about. And I believe I covered this stuff already, actually. So myelin sheathing, it surrounds the axons. There's free nerve endings in nociception or pain reception that have either less or no myelin, like we talked about. And it increases the conductance speed. Yep. We talked about nodes of Ranvier. Sure did. And yep, we talked about all this already. Okay. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Yep. That's okay though. I'm kind of getting that flow down. I'm getting it to where I can just spit it and not really think about it anymore. That's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. So more about the axon. Somas of our cells, those cell bodies, right? They make up what's termed that quote-unquote gray matter, you know? We talk about brain tissue or brains in general colloquially as gray matter, but there's both gray matter and white matter, for those of you who didn't know that already. The gray matter is, and there's like two different colors of, brain matter, as you can see here. This isn't colored that way on purpose. This is how your brain is actually, for the most part, actually colored. There's actually two different types of tissue here. Knows all too well. I know, sometimes I do. The gray matter is this stuff on kind of the outside on these ridges here. That's termed gray matter. It's not really gray, but this is also a kind of a discolored brain. It's been what's the word I'm looking for? Preserved. In a fresh brain, it would look different. It would be more red, also. But they call this gray matter. These bits here that are not white matter. That's usually around the outside of the brain. Some structures on the midbrain and the inside of the brain have gray matter as well. You're seeing some here also. That's neuron cell bodies. the myelinated axons of those neuron cell bodies that are connected to those neuron cell bodies, that's what makes up this white matter here, right? It's all white and fatty, just like, like the fat, like or a piece of gristle on the end of steak. That's also white and fatty as well. Same kind of stuff in your brain, most of this is myelinated axon. That makes up the white matter here. And yeah. Let's see. Like I said, there's that action potential that goes all the way down a neuron's axon via saltatory conduction between the nodes or to each node of RON VA along the axon, until it gets to the axon terminal, right, where we have synapses and neurotransmitters. 3 hours? What? 3 hours to what? Oh, for Resident Evil 2. Cool. Hope you enjoy it, man. Oh, Kyle's talking about that too, I think. Wasn't he? Maybe not. Anyways, the axon terminals, where the terminal of the axon, where the axon ends, right? The whole end game, right? The whole reason why there's that excitation from the dendrites, the whole reason why the soma makes all the different neurotransmitters and other things to keep the cell alive and functioning. The whole reason why those action potentials occur. It's all going down here at the axon terminals. So they can connect to not only, usually when we talk about axon terminals and synapses, we're talking about one neuron connecting to another neuron, but that's not always the case. As you can see here, they connect to a variety of different places. We're usually talking about an axon terminal going to a dendritic spine or the dendrite of another neuron. Doesn't always go that way though. A lot of neurons synapse on the end of blood vessels and release neurotransmitters or hormones and whatnot into our bloodstream. Some of them, not showing it here, but some axon terminals synapse onto muscle. In fact, a lot of them do. And those specific terminals are called end plates instead of synapses. They're called end plates. And there is a specific neurotransmitter called acetylcholine is released. And that's what kind of signals our muscles to contract when we need to move our limbs. It's, that connection is faulty in a disease called myasthenia gravis, where your immune system thinks that acetylcholine needs to be attacked and broken down, and then your body just can't keep up making enough of it, and you end up with paralysis and extreme fatigue and things like that. It's an ongoing, really crappy process. I have a friend who has that right now, and she's just usually not doing well most days. Yeah, really looking at doing getting surgeries or things like that or chemical treatments to just like shut her immune system down so she can have some semblance of a life again, She's been homebound for too long. So I got you, Ninja. Yeah, absolutely. So that's where some neuron or axon terminals end. Some of them also synapse, like we said, on dendritic spines, on dendrites. Hey! Thanks for connecting with us. Appreciate that. Autoimmune diseases, yeah, not cool. Yeah, where your immune system attacks your own body, not good. Not good at all. Like, we're really good. Well, we're not really good, but we're getting better about coming up with vaccines. Vaccines are basically where we just introduce the knowledge, more or less, for our immune system to fight a disease that it might encounter in the future, thus rendering us what we call immune to it, right? But we can't really go the other way around, where if our immune system is attacking something it shouldn't be, like parts of our body, or like in the case of psoriasis and myasthenia gravis and stuff like that, where it's attacking us, we don't know how to go in there and like take that knowledge out of the immune system and say, hey, don't do that. But we don't have the ability to do that just yet, I think that would take, just using my limited knowledge of genetics, I think it would take some pretty very, very, very early on, like embryonic stage, gene editing and very specific stuff too. And you'd have to know beforehand if a child's going to have an autoimmune disorder or not. And we just don't we don't do that stuff yet. So Integer said, my daughter had acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. Oof. So it began the lifelong struggle. Yeah. Well, let me see what that word means, or what those words means. Acute meaning there's no other underlying cause. It just kind of happened. Disseminated meaning it's kind of, I would guess, all over the place. Encephalomyelitis. It's inflammation of your Oh, okay. An inflammation of, or rather irritation or breakdown of the myelin sheathing, I would guess, in the central nervous system. Something like that. Something like that. Kind of diffuse and disseminated breakdown of myelin sheathing. Like MS, I was going to say, it sounds like MS, yeah. Which, for those of you who don't know, MS is specifically an autoimmune disorder where your immune system starts to break down the myelin sheathing in your central nervous system. It's the peripheral nervous system, or the central nervous system counterpart to Guillain-Barré syndrome, which basically does the same thing, but in your peripheral nervous system, in your body instead. Your body starts to break down the myelin sheathing on nerves and stuff like that outside of the central nervous system. Deconstruction, good to see you, welcome in, said front page of Reddit today had something about measles disabling immune system memory for a couple of years. Oh, wow. Interesting. That would be very useful, I would think. Or opens up potential avenues of study for autoimmune disorders. Wow, that's a really interesting piece of information. Thanks for sharing that. I'd love to go look that up. That's really, oh, wow. Coming up with all kinds of cool stuff. I saw on Twitter earlier today that they came up with a potential avenue for understanding, or more completely understanding and leading to more treatments of Alzheimer's. And it looks like it's caused a lot by stuff that causes gingivitis, bacteria that causes gingivitis. For some reason, that is able to like get into our brain and your body, and breaks down or causes tau plaques and stuff like that in your brain. So yeah, they're looking at that as a possible cause and area of research in Alzheimer's too. So I mean, you have to floss, and it means you probably should, I guess, or go to the dentist. You know. Yep, it does. It does. Also, quest time for whoever's ready! ! Quest to join that quest and get a little fat boy these treats. You know, he's waiting for it. This little fat boy here, he's waiting. Oh, he's so sleepy. Deconstruction's on it. I'm gonna join too, just in case. Boom. Anyways, action potentials. Go down to the axon terminals and synapse all over different parts of the neuron. They can synapse on dendritic spines, which is what normally happens. They can synapse right at the beginning of the axon, or the end of an axon. They can synapse to the soma of a cell also. They can synapse to other synapses, which I didn't realize. Or sometimes they just synapse with nothing and they just release neurotransmitters out into the ether. That happens too. So all kinds of different stuff. Tommy, welcome back. Good to see you. How the heck are you? Universal dental care, please. Universal lots of care, please. That'd be great. We could just make that happen. We can as soon as we feel like voting for it. Just saying. Anyways, that's the end goal of action potentials, is getting that ion flow down to these axon terminals for a variety of effects. We'll talk about that in a minute. Like I was saying earlier, the axon terminals are the site of neurotransmitter release and also the site of production for some smaller neurotransmitters. Things like, I believe, dopamine, that's produced right there in the axon terminal. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's true. I see you guys took out Snoop's heart nose, which means this little fat guy right here, he gets a treat. You all get some kitty cam. Hi, good boy. Oh, baby old man. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest little lab assistant on Twitch. He appreciates it, I appreciate it, you all love it. It's a win-win-win. Oh, good boy. Taking off, good boy? He might go. So, these synapses that we're seeing here, these examples of synapses, and typically, and what is typically referred to when a person says synapse, those are what are called chemical synapses. So we talk about most times. Hey, thanks for connecting with us, appreciate that. But chemical synapses are what we're normally talking about, where there's neurotransmitter release and receptor site binding, all that business. But there are also, like we learned about when we talked about synapses specifically in an earlier teaching section. Thanks for connecting with us, appreciate that. There are also what are called electrical synapses, where there isn't neurotransmitter release per se, there is no real synapse, or like a synapse as we think of it normally. It's done in a different way, but I'm not going to go into exactly how that works because we're sticking with the basics right now. That's in a VOD if you want to see it. We'll end up going over it again sometime if you want to see it again. We'll cover it again, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'm saying that more for myself than for you guys, honestly. I just don't want to go into it without meaning to. Redtacular, what's up, man? I could just, like, literally never shut up about this stuff if I'm given my own devices. So, in the interest of not doing that, we're going to move on. And yeah, we talked about the axon terminal can synapse with their variety of structures. We did talk about that. Yay, all right. Thanks for connecting with us as well. So many new connections this evening. Thank you guys for connecting with us. And like I said, and like I always like to say, whether you're chatting with us actively or you're hanging out in the back just getting your learn on, that is okay. Love having you here. Everybody, all the viewers, whether you're a lurker or a chatter, you guys all make Twitch go round. Appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending any modicum of your time here. I appreciate that immensely. All right. So, axon terminals continued. This is the site where these synaptic vesicles, basically the little sacs that hold onto neurotransmitters, that's where these are created and packed up with the neurotransmitters, right? These are just kind of hanging out in the axon terminal, waiting for that action potential to get there. When it does, we talked about this before, actually. Sorry. A lot of these vesicles are just kind of floating around inside the cytosol, inside the axon terminals. Thank you for that connection. Appreciate it. Sudden Device, good to see you. How are you? Welcome in. Feel free to ask any questions you have or stop me with any comments or anything like that. Always make sure I want to catch up with you guys and talk to you. So, hey, thanks for that connection too. Jeez, can't stop them. It's okay, I love seeing that alert. I freaking love it. It's amazing. That's a chemical synapse right there. Or at least an artist's rendition of one. But like I said, the synaptic vesicles kind of hanging out in the cytosol, floating around. Some of them are like right up next to the cell membrane, like we can see here. Some of those vesicles are held right up against the cell wall of the axon terminal and kind of snapped into these protein complexes called snares. And those are the ones that are ready for exocytosis and to spill their guts when a action potential comes down the pipe. So when it does, the action potential comes in, the ion flow comes in here. Instead of allowing in the same types of ion, it lets in a different type of ion called the calcium ions. It causes an influx of calcium ions, which sets off a couple processes and causes that synaptic vesicles cell membrane to bind with the cell membrane of the axon terminal and then open and spill all those neurotransmitters out into the synapse. Insane in the cell membrane. Got him. It's happening it's happening in the brain. Got him. Freaking red, dude. I love it. So yeah, that's basically how the process of neurotransmitter release happens. And then afterwards, new vesicles are made and all that stuff. We talked about that more in our talk about synapses, but I'm not going to go into that now. Again, I'm telling myself that more for me than you. Let's see. So when those neurotransmitters are released into the synapse, a few different things happen. Most of them are going to go out and fly over to the postsynaptic neuron, or what's also called the postsynaptic density, referring to all the different little receptor sites that are just poking out or are embedded into the this dendritic spine of a postsynaptic neuron. Right. So we kind of come full circle. We started out talking about the postsynaptic spines the dendritic spines of one neuron. We went through its anatomy and all that. Now we're to the axon terminal of that same neuron, and it's going to interact with dendritic spines on a postsynaptic neuron, or the next neuron in the circuit it's involved in. So those neurotransmitters are spilled out into the synapse. A lot of those are going to go over and interact with these receptors. As I said earlier, they act in like kind of a lock and key fashion. The certain receptors will react with a certain neurotransmitter and not other ones. So it's going to be the right neurotransmitter for the right receptor. When they interact, when they kind of open that lock, it causes ion channels nearby to open up and allow in a short burst of ions from the outside of the cell, and that's going to either raise or lower the potential inside that postsynaptic neuron. And through a process called summation, which is basically the gathering up of all the different charges in the postsynaptic neuron, eventually that's going to fire an action potential if it gets excited enough, or gets its resting potential high enough. Right? And then so on and so forth. Another action potential, more neurotransmitter release, so on and so forth to the end goal, right? After these neurotransmitters are released and they bind to those receptor sites, a couple different things can happen. They can be reuptaken into the cell, and as I'm learning, they're not really reuptaken straight into the cell. A lot of times they're also reuptaken into nearby what are called glial cells that we're going to go over next week on Tuesday. Glial cells are kind of like the support class of the brain. They support the neurons in their functions throughout the day. And one of the things that they do for some neurons is they reuptake those extra neurotransmitters. So basically they draw them out of the synapse and then bring them into themselves and then recycle them into the neuron to be reused. Because if it's still a perfectly good neurotransmitter, why make a new one? You know, that just takes more energy. That's not energy efficient. Your brain hates that. So another thing that happens is if they aren't reuptaken, they'll go through a process called enzymatic degradation, where some enzymes come up and catalyze a reaction on them, and they just break apart into their metabolites, and then they're expelled from the body eventually. And that's that. Also, diffusion happens, where neither of those things happen, and the neurotransmitter just kind of floats off and it doesn't come back. And I would guess eventually it's reuptaken somewhere else, or there's enzymatic degradation somewhere else, but that also happens. So, eventually, most of these neurotransmitters are kind of cleared away, and it's reset and ready for another release of neurotransmitters eventually. Let's see. And that's kind of the basics of it. You know, we talked about the 4 different areas of the neuron, and we'll just kind of go through and review those again real quick. Hey, thank you for that follow. Appreciate it. Thanks for connecting with us. But yeah, we're going to go through and review those 4 basic areas with this more comprehensive picture of a neuron and synapse. Okay. So we started out talking about the dendrites of a neuron. That is, which are filled kind of with dendritic spines. I don't think it actually says that here. Nope. It doesn't label them specifically, but these little tiny branches off the ends of this arborization, or these dendritic branches, these little tiny projections, those are dendritic spikes, or dendritic spines, sorry. And that's where axons of these presynaptic neurons are going to connect to this red neuron, this red colored neuron, which we call the postsynaptic neuron. And that's where synapses are going to occur. That's where they're going to be built, or that's where they're going to happen, basically. Oof. So that's those. This is where those ion channels are opened whenever the receptor sites on those dendritic spines are stimulated by presynaptic neuron or neurotransmitter release, and those ions from the outside extracellular matrix, those kind of make their way down these dendritic projections and gather here at what we call the axon hillock. Here it is labeled. The area right between the soma, or the cell body of the neuron, and the beginning of the axon. Talk about it in a minute. And just said, "This is great, mate. I gotta run." Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for coming by. Hope to see you again. Thanks for coming by with Damien, and it's nice meeting you, and thanks for the book recommendation. I appreciate that. We'll see you around, okay? Take it easy. You got there. You got people, I don't know. Oh, I don't know those emo people. I like it. Anyways, so that's the dendrites. We talked about the soma. That's where the nucleus is, and which, for those of you who don't know, the nucleus, or the nucleus of a cell has the DNA inside of it, and DNA has basically all the code that your cells need to make all the different biological molecules that it needs to do its daily functions and survive, right? So of course neurons have those too, being cells in and of themselves. They have that same thing. So of course DNA transcription and protein synthesis and all that's happening here in the soma. Neurons have special little structures called Nissl bodies, which are basically kind of like little kind of strategically placed, I guess, or just kind of diffusely placed protein synthesis factories, or biological molecule synthesis factories, just because your neurons do so much of that stuff. They have little specialized structures for it. Red says neurons are the powerhouse of the cell. No. Nice try. That says mitochondria, baby. Yeah, mitochondria, as we talked about earlier, are making that ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is kind of the functional unit of energy transfer. Oh my god! Look at this! Ashley Christ, my friend and mentor Ashley Christ, coming on in with 55 of her friends. Look at that. Look at that stuff. Wow. Welcome on in. Let's get those fat beards up in chat, guys, if you can, to welcome in those raiders. Good to see you, raiders from Ashley Christ channel. I'm going to try to say hi to all of you. Cute Cupcake Cakey. Good to see you. Or Cute Cupcakey. Rook. Good to see you, friend. How are you? Hey, it's Luna. I don't think we've met. Good to see you. The Divine Omega. Welcome in. Dave. How are you, friend? Frank the Pegasus. First time in my channel. How the heck are you? Good to see you. How you doing, Rook? Hope you're good. Neon Pixels. Long time to see, friend. How are you? Trina. Fellow team member. How the heck are you? Same with Rook. Fellow team member. Good to see you. How are you? Lindsay with a bunch of numbers. Good to see you. How the heck are you? Welcome on in, guys. Ashney. Leader of the Yam fam. Welcome in. Good to see you, friend. Only one Jessica. Good to see you. Lindsay. Thanks for that, host. Appreciate that. Oh my god, the Yam has so many yams up on my channel right now. I can't even stop them. I just don't even know what to do it. Lindsay with a bunch of numbers. It's the best I got. That means the main Lindsay. I'm just saying if you want to change your name to that, Lindsay with a bunch of numbers. It'd be dope sauce. I'm just going to put that out there. Nice to meet you. This is Frank. My voice is Butta. I get that a lot, actually. Thank you. Excited to see if I remember any of this from your degree. Oh, you have a degree in this. Like, what more specifically is your degree in? I'd love to hear about that. Well, Lord, everybody says that. I mean, it's just the easier way to say it, Lindsay. I'm just saying. Ashley says the fascinating stream. Thank you. I get that a lot. Quite more recently. I just started doing focusing more on neuroscience content. Dave with that host. Appreciate you, friend. Thank you. I started focusing more on providing neuroscience content within the last few months, and since then, like, yep, been getting a lot of great feedback about it. So, tells me I'm doing something right, you know? Hey, thanks for connecting with us. Appreciate that. Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate it. I wouldn't have been able to do it this well without you, or maybe even ever. So, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You love my alerts? I know, aren't they sick? Oh my gosh. My boy Sean Senpai, shouted out down in the panels down below. He's the one that made these. Same person that made That Nerd Violet's panels and stuff like that. I think Copacabana has some too. So yeah. Yep. Ooh, looks like Frank the Pegasus also has a secret profession. So do I. I'm actually a licensed speech therapist. I don't make a big deal of saying it, but I used to do that for a living. So last night, Neon, thank you for that host also. Appreciate that. You just come here and study for AP Psych class? I mean, yeah, I could help answer some of those questions. We focus more on, like, pretty solely on neuroscience, not as much psychology, but you're gonna get like the physiological underpinnings of a lot of psychological processes. We talked about long-term potentiation, which is the process that we perceive as learning earlier. We touched very briefly on that. So talk about that. Learned about this stuff recently? I bet you did, Lindsay. You can't kind of separate the two, honestly. They go together very well. Yeah, I was talking about I am a speech therapist. Last time we talked about the secret language of speech therapists, the secret written language. I taught everybody about the International Phonetic Alphabet. We talked a lot about speech disorders and stuff like that as well. Very interesting stuff. I enjoyed it. Many people enjoyed it. So many big words. There are a ton of big words, lots of jargon. Which I always try to make sure I stop and like explain what that jargon so people understand it. I'm not trying to just sound smart here. I actually want people to learn the stuff. So, you know. Frank said, I mean, psych really is neuropsychosocial. It totally is. Yeah. The neuro part's super important. Yes. And the behavior part's important. The social part is. Neuroscience is. I mean, all the biological part, all of it is. And any one aspect that studies the human body and mind that thinks that they have it all in their one view on it without encompassing all parts of that, I think that they're wrong, and they need to open up a bit more and focus on collaborating with those other fields, you know? Just like a lot of streamers need to open up and collaborate with other streamers, you know? You're better and you make better content that way. I think science can make better content, more accurate, more all-inclusive content by working with the other branches of science to get a better, more unifying theory of human development, behavior, and all those different aspects of us. So, you know. Dave, thanks so much, man. Yeah, I got accepted to the lounge stream team. Hell yeah, I did, dude. Oh my gosh. I've been wanting that for a long time. You know, a group of people that, like, when I first started streaming, like, I kind of came across Simcopter and some other ones, some other prominent members. I was like, these are people that I would love, that, like, I love their content. I love how they do it, you know. I love how they produce. I love, like, just the vibe of their stream and their chat and all that. That's the kind of thing that I want for my community, and I've been working at that ever since. And you know, they saw fit to have me join them, and I freaking couldn't be happier about that, you know. It's that feeling when I got invited to the Yam Fam all over again. It's really good. Loved it. Frank said, recommending me to a linguistic friend. Oh, all right, sure. We tend not to focus on the SLP stuff as much, but hey, we do have it, you know. Thanks, Neon. I appreciate that. I'm doing so great. Sorry I haven't been around as much. That's okay. No worries. So I tell everybody, you don't have to apologize for not being here. I mean, real life is way more important than being here. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's all good. We miss. It's always better when you're here. We miss you when you're gone, but life happens. No worries. No worries. And thanks, Ruck. I appreciate that. Congrats again on joining the lounge. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. And then just stop. The NATO phonetic alphabet is not an alphabet. Sorry, just kidding. It's not. No. Seem a lot more comfortable with my large raids too. Indeed, I'm more used to those for sure. Thank you, Ashley, for giving me some practice and for bringing over some people to meet me. I appreciate that. Lindsay said she's coming back. We're happy to have you, Lindsay. Be great. Frank said that they absolutely are very narrow-minded. Yeah, those different parts of psychology and neuroscience. Yeah, definitely need to see how it's all intertwined. We do. I experienced that a lot in my undergraduate program. The school that I was at was not very neuroscience focused. Unfortunately, I wish it had been. I was very behavior analysis focused, and like the behavior analysts did not want to hear anything about neuroscience, and like that is stupid. Like I can see as like a young 20-year-old, these are clearly related. Like, why aren't you guys working together and trying to figure out how these are related to one another? Like, it was just such like a genitalia measuring contest. Like, stop it! Oh, work together. Gosh, like a mid 20-year-old shouldn't be telling professors this, in my opinion. Hey, it's Luna said, I always wanted to ask this question. I'm curious about this stuff. What's up with dreams? How are the studies about dreams going in the neuroscience community? It's been a while since I checked the studies in progress about it. Indeed, Ashley, I have. Indeed, for sure. We're there. We're there. I tried once. They said like, yeah, it's closed. Like it sounded like we're gonna let you know if we want you. I was like, all right, cool, that's it. And then it happened. I was so happy. So hey, it's Luna. I don't know a ton about dreams yet. It's something I want to talk about eventually. There is a lot of research going into that for sure, but I mentioned this process called long-term potentiation earlier, where there's that which is basically causes our perception of learning, where we pick up new information, and also forgetting, where we forget stuff we haven't learned in a long time. Sleep and dreams, like that's where a lot of the consolidation part of long-term potentiation happens. So basically that's your brain taking the information that is learned throughout the day and then strengthening synaptic connections within your brain, connecting it to other areas of your brain that already have very strongly connected synapses. And I've read a theory that's kind of why we have those dreams, is it's reactivating different synapses in your brain. Some of them are going to be visual, some of them are going to be auditory and all that stuff, and that gives us that perception of like these crazy things that went on in our brain that don't make any sense. Anecdotally, I can say, like, when I used to work at Pizza Hut 24/7, like I'd work all day, then go home and sleep, and then come back and open the next day. Sometimes I would dream about working at Pizza Hut all night, which sucked, first of all. Like, I felt like I didn't even get a night's sleep. I was just there, just working the whole time. But also, like, yeah, that's what I was doing all day, so that's what my brain consolidated into memory, was working at Pizza Hut, you know? So, yeah, that's all I can say on dreams right now. I'm not up on the current research on that, but I want to be. Many streamers talk about like, oh, my gaming backlog is so crazy. Like, I talk more about like, dude, my reading and research and coming up with teaching portions backlog is so heavy. Like, there's so much stuff I want to teach about, but I have to do the research first, you know? So thank you for the question. I'm sorry I couldn't answer it more fully, and I hope that you got something out of that. Let's see. Dave said, I wonder what the feeling would be when you get that check mark. I know, right? One day I'm gonna get there. Y'all are gonna get there for sure. Let's keep at it. Frank says, it reminds me of the three blind mice parable. Look at only one piece of the elephant. Exactly. That's exactly it, you know? Those branches of science need to work together. Lindsay's got to go. Hey, peace out. You got your psych midterm. Good luck on that. I hope I got to say goodbye to you. I hope you were still here. Peace out. Good luck on that midterm. Hope to see you again. Frank said, there's actually science for that? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's totally like dream research and stuff. People want to know why we're dreaming. Yeah, absolutely. The field of neuroscience is just like you can't really see it like if you don't look at it, but like it's exploding. It's progressing so freaking fast, so freakishly fast. So like textbooks can't even keep up with it. Like people writing textbooks can't keep up with the new research coming out. Like it's just, by the time you get a brand new textbook, like it's already kind of outdated. It's just progressing so quickly compared to maybe other branches of science, or how quickly branches of science is used to, you know? Let's see. Red said, all I know is Mr. Sandman brings me the dreams. It's true. So I've heard. And I see y'all took out Tortoiseshell Tangy, the treat trooper, which means a little fat boy gets a treat. Y'all get some kitty cam. For those of you guys who didn't know, and you're seeing him for the first time, this is our little stream mascot, my stream buddy, my fat little lab assistant, fat boy. And you guys, whoa, you guys get to go on treat quests to get him little treats. He sits here with me throughout most of the stream, cuddling in the cuddle chair, on the cuddle throw, putting out those positive vibes, waiting patiently for treats, playing with his toys, playing with sad toast and stuff, doing his thing. He's always about. When we meet the sub incentive over my head, we get to have kitty cam all session. But not before then. That's okay though. Hey, it's Luna asked another question. Do you think their dreams and deja vus are related in some ways? I would think so, yeah. I think that. I don't have anything that says that, but I think so, yeah. Some sort of temporary dissociation or some sort of projection into our memories? I think so. I think something like that. I think it's just your brain's your brain experiencing stimuli that sets off a similar pathway, and you see that you kind of feel that association. I'd say so. Like I said, I have nothing that says that, but I think so. Tax due. Can always count on you, man. Thanks for the host. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you, man. How you doing? How's work today, bud? Frank says, okay, answer me this. Why doesn't the brain understand itself better? What do you mean? What do you mean like that, by that? Like, why don't we understand the brain better? Or like, why doesn't... I don't know what you mean by that question. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Yeah, that's indeed. Yep, he's kind of a big deal on this channel. Just another day, says Tax Team. All right, man. Well, I hope Friday comes pretty quick. No problem, Dave. It's been lovely having you here and stuff. I know you got to get to sleep. It's super late for you. I get it, Doug. Don't worry about it. We'll see you around, okay? Take it easy, man. Good night indeed, friend. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the host, and we'll see you around, okay? Thanks for being here. Frank says, I guess, I mean, the brain knows things, right? Sure. It talks to our body, sends out signals. It does. But why can't we be in on any of that on any of that? Okay. I see what you mean. What you're kind of referring to then, see, there's this old adage, guys. This old adage that, you know, your brain, you only use 10% of your brain, some garbage like that. That's not true. That's not true. You're using 100% of your brain all the time. Your brain is always working. It's one of the reasons why it takes up it's so metabolically active. It takes so much of our energy. The brain takes about 20% of the energy for our entire body, something like that. Some statistic like that. A larger amount of the energy that we consume than you would think. The brain takes that. And most of the stuff that's going on is behind the scenes. That only using 10% of our brains thing is, we're only conscious of about 5 or 10% of the stuff that's done to us or that we're focusing on, right? We only focus on about 10% of that. But everything's still working behind the scenes, you know? We're still, like, our occipital lobe in the back of our head is still processing visual information while we're looking at things. The auditory cortex is still hearing sounds even if we're not consciously aware of them. Our somatosensory cortex we talked about during the sense of touch talk, and is receiving proprioceptive input, or a sense of where a body is in space, so we don't have to consciously focus on where a body is in order to keep it still and all that. We're also receiving sense of touch information all the time, but we're not always consciously aware of it. So I think, Frank, my answer to that question is we aren't conscious of all that, because if we had to be conscious of all those different inner workings going on all the time, we wouldn't be able to focus on anything productive, you know? We wouldn't be able to focus on going and getting food or hunting or lying in wait and getting away from a predator. We wouldn't be able to focus on fighting for our life. We wouldn't be able to focus on those things, you know? Like the process of proprioception, totally automatic process, you know, just keeping track of where our body is in space at any one point in time, so we can move how we want to without thinking about it. Think about, like, if you were going to go throw a spear at something, or even make a spear in the first place, if you had to, like, watch your arm and think about what you were going to do it, like, you would never be able to do it, you know? So your brain, the more prehistoric or ancient parts of our brain, those are all really automatic functions. We don't have to think about them anymore. So we can think about the more important stuff, like what you're going to have for dinner or what kind of shitpost you're going to make, you know? They're really important stuff in life. So that's what that is. That's my answer for that, Frank. And I hope that makes sense. It makes a ton of sense. Good. All right, good. Because we don't have NZT. What is that? What is that? Oh, he left. He can't answer. Red says, I use like 8% of my brain. No. You're using all of it, dog. You are. Hey, it's Luna said, the closest explanation I can come up with about dreams, no proof whatsoever, I have no knowledge of this at all, is that to me, we can't dream of things we haven't seen or heard of before. It's always an interpretation of our background, being through life experiences, movies, songs, books. I think creativity has a huge part of how your dreams develop and what happens in them. And that kind of goes along with what I was saying, hey, it's Luna. It's that the learning you did throughout the day and the memories you already have, those are being connected together, right? And used in creative ways, activated in kind of random ways that wouldn't normally happen when you're awake, right? So, of course, they're based on stuff that's already happened to you. They contain family members or people you haven't seen in a long time or whatever, right? Because as that long-term potentiation is happening, all those memories that you've gathered throughout your life, those are being kind of reactivated randomly. So it's always based on stuff that you've seen or heard or referenced or whatever, right? Captain Ethanol. Thanks for that host, my friend. Welcome in. Good to see you, dude. Good to see you. The really important stuff. Exactly, Rook. You know what's up. Cookie Ghost. You knew what's going on. We're talking about neuroscience, Cookie. Getting lots of raids and hosts and meeting new people. It's good times. But we talk about neuroscience 3 days a week here at the beginning of the streams. And near the end portion of the stream, we do some variety gaming. And on Friday, it's just variety gaming. We just relax, play some games, and talk about neuroscience if you guys want to. We've done that quite a bit. But yeah, 3 days a week, we really focus on neuroscience. So welcome on in. Good to see you. Feel free to ask any questions. Good to see you, Ethanol. Gemini said, what if your whole brain is the prehistoric part? In some ways, it kind of is. But the neocortex, that wrinkly bit on the outside, that's the newest part of our brain, and what kind of sets us apart from one of the things, in my opinion, that sets us apart from animals. What makes us human versus animals, you know? Dave's still here. All right, he'll answer the NZ. Says NZT is the drug used in Limitless, the movie and TV series, as well as which allows people to use higher percentage of their brain. Oh, okay, I hadn't heard of that. Yeah, hadn't heard of that. But yeah, that's based on that myth, that 10% of your brain myth. Yeah, there isn't a drug that's going to allow you to use more of your brain because you're already using all of it. There's no more brain to use. So yeah. Now, as far as I know, Dave, there isn't anything like that possible. Now, the closest thing I would think that we have to that is like Ritalin or like some sort of upper that like helps you focus better. So you can block out more distracting stimuli and direct your attention better. Because like all the different parts of your brain are kind of constantly vying for your conscious attention, which is why distractions and daydreams happen. If you're not getting strong enough input from the outside world. But yeah, as far as something that lets you use more of your brain, that's not a thing. It's already all being used. So already all being used. Darker Orc, welcome on in. Good to see you. Thanks, Ash, for letting me know that person was there. Welcome on in. Lotus said, this is also interesting. Thank you. When you have deja vu, you get the weirdest feelings ever. Absolutely. It's like your brain just glitches. Totally. Yeah. So your brain's kind of trying to make sense of some interesting stimuli coming in, for sure. Ethanol would like to learn blacksmithing. All right, dude. That's awesome. Dope. What's, besides, I guess, like, time and money, what's stopping you, man? Blacksmithing would be dope, dude. I can see you making some really cool weapons and stuff. You'll find one, dude. Yeah, you did find one. Dang, Ethanol found a kitty. One of the other things you guys can do here in our chat is find kitties to add to the kitty club. And Ethanol just found one. Now he gets to tell us the name and type of kitty he would like, and we'll add it into the kitty club. Red said, ha, you maybe use 10% of my brain. Got him. How long have I been studying this, Cookie? Oh, geez, if I talk about, like, my first classes, probably around over 10 years. Yeah, off and on. Or you just do a ton of cocaine, that should work for sure. Oh yeah, no side effects there. Yeah, just do all the coke. Perfect. Absolutely. Totally, there you go. Peace out, Dave. Get some sleep, man. Take it easy, man. Good to see you. Gemini said, I don't have any wrinkles on my brain, now since I got a steam cleaned anyways. Gotta... Oh my gosh. Stop. Those of you guys who don't know, I mean, Gemini obviously jests, but those wrinkles in your brain, those are actually really, really important. And we can actually see those back here. Boop, boop. These wrinkles, the crinkles on the outside of your brain, those are actually really important. You can see a good picture of it here, but that gives you more surface area on your brain to have more neurons, right? If it was just smooth, you wouldn't be able to pack in nearly as many neurons as we have in our brain. And the more, well, I can't say the more neurons we have, the better, or, you know, the smarter we are, but our brain is set up such that we need this in order for it to be functioning fully. So, peace out, Rook. Good to see you. Video editing's calling your name? Of course it is. You do well with it, alright? Take it easy. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for the congratulations. We'll see you around, okay? What if you water cool your brain? It already is water cooled. It's in that CSF bath all the time, dog. Captain Ethanol said what's stopping him from blacksmithing is time and money, essentially. Yeah. Startup costs for being a blacksmith are high. Yeah, you gotta buy all the power equipment and stuff. Nobody does that by like hand anymore. Especially if you want to make blades, unless you want to send stuff to be professionally heat treated, etc. Yeah. Watching those forging shows and stuff, they have like the power hammer things, like the grinder and all that power equipment they use. Absolutely. I get you, man. Totally. Yep. Get it. All right, let's finish up this review. Oh, these are keep getting all these raiders. Jeez, can't even finish what I'm talking about. It's fine. It's a pleasure meeting all these new people coming in. I love it. You should be able to overclock, Ninja. I think that's where drugs come in, and it's not good for your brain. When it's a bit of a cyberpunky question, do you think hardware expansions to our brain would ever be possible, like those cringy 80s movies like RoboCop or Johnny Mnemonic? Like, I have no idea. I don't know if that's possible or not. I will say that if it is possible, it's a long ways off, because right now our brains are like way more powerful. Like even a rat brain is like way more powerful than like some of our supercomputers, you know? There's way more sophisticated, way more computing power. We're just where it's at for certain things. Computers are faster and better at certain things than we are, but as far as like, you know, the range of functions and calculations and stuff, hardware simply isn't up to what we got going on. So I would say if it's possible, not for a long time. We simply don't understand enough about the brain and technology to integrate them in a beneficial way yet. Ethanol wants a science kitty with studious glasses and a lab coat named Ina Beta. I freaking love that, dude. Thanks, Ethanol. Ethanol wants brain chips? I mean, sorry, Ninja wants brain chips? I think it might be a way off. Oh goddamn, Odysseus, what's up? What's up, man? How much do I know about the effects of psychedelics? Ooh, geez. I can't say that I know a ton about that. I don't know enough about that to go into it, man. Sorry. I'm still learning a lot of what there is to learn about the brain. I don't know a ton about that. I know what's going to happen is those drugs are going to either overstimulate or more powerfully stimulate certain receptors in your brain, and that's going to cause those hallucinations just by over stimulating certain parts of your brain. Because I mean, overstimulation or even understimulation of your brain just naturally without drugs, that can cause hallucinations as well. So, such as in disorder, geez, come on, schizophrenia. You know, there's a chemical imbalance in your brain that's overstimulating certain parts of your brain, and you end up with hallucinations sometimes. So, kind of like that. Similar to that. Taxi said, when movies show us if we're using more of the brain and we start getting powers, I go, why would it do that? Yeah, exactly. You just kind of gotta level up that suspension of disbelief and just go with the flow, I guess, if you're gonna enjoy that movie. But I can understand why you couldn't. And yeah, I do the same thing with video games and movies all the time. Luna just wants a new GPU for her brain so you have better graphics in real life. That's how it works, right? Absolutely, yeah. You just increase take out the GPU, you got your occipital lobe now, pop it in. Bam, there you go. I mean, reality's already 3D in high def. I don't know what else you want. But hey, it is what it is. 520 kitties. Ethanol got 420 kitty and 520. Lucky duck, look at you, man. All right, let's jump back into this. Let's review, and we're going to move on to some Darkest Dungeon. I promise I'm actually going to finish this review now. So we talked about the dendrites, the dendritic spines. That's what's going to receive those presynaptic signals from a presynaptic neuron. It's going to get that neuronal stimulation from a presynaptic neuron. It's going to open those ion channels. The ions are going to flow in from outside the cell and all the way and kind of gather here in the axon hillock. The soma of the cells doing DNA transcription, biological molecule synthesis, some larger synthesis of neurotransmitters. Smaller neurotransmitters are synthesized down in the axon terminals themselves right there on site. And yeah. So the axon hillock has all the ions at it, and we're going to remember that spot and check back in with chat here real quick. Dark Pegasus says, hi, how'd you make that speech to text thing in the bottom right? I didn't make it, actually. It's a website called Web Captioner. You can just go there right now and check it out. You just go there and you basically just turn it on. It's like literally you just push the button and it starts capturing your voice. You do a browser capture in OBS and boom, you're good to go. Pretty easy to set up. Pretty easy to set up. Bearded Dragon, welcome in. He's searching. Oh no. Thanks for hooking up Bearded Dragon with some of that currency, man. Whoa, you guys made it rain on Bearded Dragon. Bearded Dragon, you should be able to do it now. There you go. Exactly. Gemini said psychedelics are a really complicated subject. They are. They really are, yeah. Main thing to know from a neurology perspective is that most common ones interact with a serotonin receptor. They do. Yep. Absolutely. Especially like LSD and stuff. Definitely do. The majority cause their effect through reuptake inhibition, which is going to stop reuptake from happening and leave more serotonin out there, which is going to overstimulate those neurons that are serotonergic or react to stimuli or serotonin. Yep. Not by creating more dopamine or serotonin, but by making it so that the serotonin available stays out there longer and just keeps plugging into those receptor sites over and over again and overstimulating those parts of your brain. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we share those, Ethanol. It's all good. It's all good. We can't control where viewers are at any one time. We can only welcome them with open arms and introduce them to each other. That's how it works, man. Odysseus, it's that way for psychedelics, but also like I was saying for schizophrenia. There is chemical imbalances, especially in the frontal lobe with dopamine receptors. There's too much dopamine produced at any one time, like in our bodies. So that there's not so much reuptake is blocked, but there's too much dopamine at any one time. So you get overstimulation, and you can get some hallucinations because of that. Yeah. I'm not sure of the receptor sites for LSD or mushrooms, or you can get hallucinations with coke too. That's dopamine for sure. But yeah, either dopamine or serotonin receptors. Yep. Ethanol said, can't you produce schizo symptoms by giving patients too much dopamine? Yes, you can. Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely can. All right, so yeah, see, exactly, Ethanol. Yeah, parts of your brain are just being overstimulated, understimulated, depending on what drug you're taking. That can cause perceptual not deficits, but differences. Sometimes deficits, but definitely perceptual differences for sure. All right, so those ions that were coming in through the dendritic spines, those gather at the axon hillock, and we talked about how the axon hillock has a different type of membrane than the rest of the axon. It's got a bunch of ion channels right there waiting, just ready to wait to let in all the ions from the outside extracellular matrix. And when enough of those ions gather here, an action potential occurs, which we talked about before in our action potential teaching section. A fresh influx of ions comes in, and those passively diffuse down through this little core of myelin sheathing to what's called a node of Ranvier. Actually, the ion channels open there, allowing a new fresh influx of ions. Those passively conduct down or passively transfer down to the next node of Ranvier. Ion channels open again, so on and so forth till you get to the axon terminals. And I'll catch up on chat again. Peace out, Neon Pixels. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you as always. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see. Ethanol said, none of the people I smoke with hallucinate, though. Even other people who hallucinate when they smoke. It's going to affect everybody differently. There's going to be interpersonal differences for sure. Gemini said, hyperstimulation of the fusiform gyrus, which helps us detect faces. Yep. One of the reasons it's so common for people to see faces, human or eyes, human shapes, or animals when hallucinating. Makes sense. Yep, we talked about the fusiform gyrus on here before. I put it up on Twitter and Instagram as well. Yep. That's what lets us recognize faces. Damage to that will cause a disorder called prosopagnosia, or the inability to recognize faces, especially like familiar ones. You just can't recognize people that you used to know anymore, but if they start talking, you're like, oh, yeah, I know who that person is. Talk to them on the phone, you'll know exactly who they are. It's good to go. See, quest time for whoever's ready. Ethanol's ready. Kyle's ready. Bearded Dragon's on it. Ash is on the quest and found a kitty. You know the drill, Ash. You know the drill. So the action potential is heading down the axon, jumping to these nodes of Ronvier using what we call that saltatory conduction. It just kind of jumps between these nodes. There's a myelin sheathing that's wrapped around the outside of the axon. That's going to increase that conduction speed and fidelity. We talked all about that. These microtubules that are also inside the axon, that's how those larger molecules synthesized in the soma are going to get down to the axon terminals, where they need to, or where they need to go if they're larger neurotransmitters, things like that. That's how they transmit on their way down there. And I'm going to talk about the axon terminals in this synapse in just a moment. I'm going to catch up on chat first. Dave the Piano Guy, welcome back in, man. It's good to see you. Long time no see. MS Soul, welcome to that quest and welcome to the stream. How the heck are you? Ash wants a smart kitty with an affinity for music named Axon Rose. Freaking love it, dude. We can do famous musician kitties now? I love this. I like where this is going. But I see you guys took out Fang the Panther Disciple, which means this little fat boy gets a treat. You guys get some kitty cam. Oh, you little heart nose. How you doing? Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest little kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. Look at this boy. Oh, what a buddy. I love him. 521 kitties we're up to. Muffin's fatter, to be honest. Is she? That's Fats has been losing some weight, so he's moving down in the weights. He's moving down in those weight brackets. He's been a good boy, losing some weight. Not that he's had any sort of say in the matter. I mean, he just gets less to eat. So, I mean, it's taken no effort on his part. But I'm still proud of him. Ninja found a kitty. You certainly know the drill because you do this for other people all the time. Ash says, I always love that look. He looks at the treats. It's like, ooh, I get one now. He does. Anytime I mention his name or whatever, he's like, oh, treats. He's only a minor league chonk now. Yeah, he's kind of moved back down. He's moving towards a fine boy. He'll never be there, but he's moving back down, No longer mega chonker, more like heckin' chonker. Kit train! I'm okay with this. Kyle, dang, dude. The kitties are real. I'm okay with this. Look at that, man. Kyle, were you telling me you were waiting for Resident Evil 2 also? It's coming out in a couple hours. Were you telling me that? I forget. Tell me all about it. Anyways, also, so at the at the axon terminals, we have synapses. The axon terminals are going to connect to this grayed out neuron in the background. It's going to connect to the dendritic spines of this grayed out neuron in the background. And it'll look kind of like this. The synaptic vesicles at the ends of this axon terminal, sitting there waiting, ready to go with those neurotransmitters. Some of them are right up next to the cell membrane, and when that action potential hits, it's going to open up calcium channels in the cell membrane of the axon terminal and allow those synaptic vesicles to bind with the cell membrane of the axon terminal and go through exocytosis, where it just spills those neurotransmitters out into the synapse, which causes it to bind with these receptor sites across the way, and that's going to kick off the same reaction we just described in this red neuron, the neuron we've been talking about currently. And there's going to be excitation, there's going to be a gather of ions at the axon hillock, action potential, so on and so forth. And that is how we get neural circuitry and all the complex behaviors that we get and we experience every day. That's it. Let me catch up on the chat here again. You guys are talking so much and I love it. Too spoopy for Red? Okay. Or for Kyle? Okay. All right. Oh, that's right. You don't like scary games. That's right. You were not talking about that then. I know you were talking about the Vesperia remaster, but I couldn't remember if you were talking about the Resident Evil remaster too. That's right. Kyle says I can play RE5 and maybe 4. Okay. Not 7. Gemini said, that's how you tell if they're old neurons. They turn gray like that instead of having the cool red and blue paint job. Obviously, yeah. They no longer have the ice cream paint job. Instead, they have, you know, they start to gray out, you know? They get gray hairs and stuff. Yeah. Yep. No more. Red says Resident Evil 4 sucks. I haven't played any of them besides the first one, so I have no opinion here. Yeah, I got you, Kyle. I got you. Resident Evil 2 came out in 98. How can a game that old be so spoopy? I know, right? Watch out. You know, Orange Ninjas are Resident J.E. Bader, so watch out. Watch out. When your dendrites start to go gray, that's when you get join the men's Neuron Club, the men's Axon Club. Yeah. The Axon Club for men. Get rid of those gray axons and stuff. You don't want that. The dendrites and axons going gray. No, get those colored. Red, blue, maybe even a little bit of yellow. Get those fancy colors back in. Get that ice cream paint job back in there. Ninja says, I'm gonna like his kitty ad. Well, show me. Do it. I want to hear it. Anyways, guys, that is the Neuron Basics review. We'll be back to this stuff again sometime, and I'm going to keep adding to it as I find more tidbits of information that I feel like you should know, but I want to keep it basic for everybody, you know? We're going to come back to this another time, but